Hello, beautiful soul. I am Karina, your human design and alignment guide.
And I am Skylar Shea, your personal energetic guide, intuitive cheerleader, and high-level professional coach.
And welcome to Raise Your Freak. We created this podcast because we are driven to live to our fullest potential and want to share our experiences and obsessions with the frequency-curious individuals out there. We go live every Friday at 11:11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time on Zoom, so you can be part of the conversation.
I'm so excited about all of this because I love podcasts, but I always find myself wanting to ask questions. By offering you the opportunity to join us live, this means you can ask your questions in real time.
Each week, you can expect various conversations regarding all things human frequency, as well as support to help you integrate.
We understand the importance of tending to your frequency and engaging in topics as it helps you along your path to expansion and alignment.
Our goal is to help you feel a part of a community as you navigate your journey through this lifetime.
We look forward to connecting with you every week live at our Zoom headquarters, on YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
I think we covered everything, Skylar.
I think so too.
Okay, let's dive in.
Hi, Karina.
Hi, Skylar Shea. Happy Friday. I'm loving today. No humidity. It's so beautiful out. Yeah, I'm very happy. I love this time of year. It's my favorite.
If you told me you were in the tropics somewhere, I would believe you.
Honestly, it's so interesting because if you told me 8 years ago that I'd be moving back into the country, I would have lied to you. But now I'm like, wow, look at this life I've really manifested for myself. I have gratitude every single day for what I have and what I've manifested.
I'm excited for this topic and conversation today because I think for both of us, it's not really something we've totally touched on yet, but within our own spiritual journeys, our own journeys within the work that we've done, I think we both started with the curiosity of reading books or listening to podcasts about manifestation and then starting to apply some of these practices and tools for ourselves, which we'll get into today. And there's so much jargon out there now, and it can be like, okay, wait, where do I even start? And some of it might sound so wooey, and it's yes, it is, but also there's a reason why people are talking about it and the reason why it works. So I hope my intention for this conversation, if anything, is just to bring a little bit more clarity. If you don't even understand that word yet, you will by the end of this session. But just to be able to see what is possible for you based on learning about our own experiences with manifestation and actually a lot of the science that helps create it and make it work. And it's not just this esoteric perspective that is keeping everyone delusional.
Yeah, I love it. I think what I love so much is that we're this is definitely going to be a series.
Yeah.
Because there is a lot involved and we really want to dive in deep. So in that way, there's an enormous amount of clarity around it, as you mentioned. But today, I think what we really wanted to start with is really talk about our own experiences. Skylar, why don't you start us off and talk to us about how did you hear about manifestation? What was your introduction and what kind of path that it's led you on?
So it's not necessarily something that was specifically talked about within my household, but the ideas around being able to dream and your dreams can create your reality, which is really what manifestation is, was always embedded within my belief system. And that song by Supertramp, Dreamer, was honestly probably my first introduction into the concepts or beliefs around manifestation. My parents have always been very pro doing what lights us up rather than doing what is expected of us and living an out of the box life. When I was in grade 6, my parents took us out of school and we went on a trip on a sailboat for a year. That was all created and due to my parents manifestation and creations. Before I even knew the terminology, I already was always seen to believe what was possible by just allowing ourselves to dream and being able to dream big. Your dreams can never be too big. So that was that. But then when I really started getting into the actual languaging of it, the principles of it, applying it and using it within my own life in a conscious way, not an unconscious way, was when I moved to Costa Rica. And I had a girlfriend come and visit me, and so I was like 26, 27 at the time. And she was having a 2-week transformation period. She had just quit one job and didn't have another job lined up, but had this trip already booked and was like, I have no idea what my next steps are going to be. So I'm going to buy a whole bunch of self-help books. And in the next 2 weeks, when I'm in Costa Rica with Skylar, all I'm going to do is read these self-help books. And so one of the self-help books that she had was the Esther Hicks self-help book that Karina has right now, if she wants to share it, The Ask and It Is Given. I absolutely devoured that book, and I was obsessed with this concept and idea of the power of your vibration. I was learning Reiki at the time, and I was a witness to when my vibration had shifted and gone into a sense of greater alignment or balance for myself. It got me out of a toxic relationship, and it brought me to a dream life in Costa Rica. I was living the principles without understanding the principles as I was reading it. And so then I started applying it where I was in Costa Rica was so remote, and it is its own magic little bubble. But we talk about that space and the magic of it and the high vibrational frequency of it. And a really cool story that we both experienced while we were there. The vibration of the space just naturally allows for manifestations to come quite fast. And so I started playing around with this idea of, okay, ask and you shall receive. So I have to walk like a kilometer to work today. I don't want to walk there. I want to be driven there. So sure enough, I get up onto the street corner and someone stops immediately and is like, where do you need to go? And we drive down the street together. Now the culture there is much more supportive of hitchhiking, and there's logical reasons why that is so much easier for that aspect to come through. But I was able to start seeing and acknowledging, oh, ask and you shall receive. Put it out there and it gets to come back to you. Being able to continue to apply these aspects was so powerful for me. But the one thing that I'll say about that book in particular, and Esther Hicks' teachings in particular, if you're not familiar with Esther Hicks, she channels a source of energy called Abraham. Abraham is a source consciousness that really helps us to understand and articulate aspects of manifestation and the law of attraction. And it's very heavily focused on vibration and making sure that your vibration is in a place that it is attracting in your desires. So it's a little bit leans onto this fact that if you feel good, you'll receive whatever you want. And that's not exactly how manifestation truly works. You really have to consider your belief systems. There are other steps that we'll get into today and get into in further sessions. But even if you're just like, oh, what do you mean by your belief systems? We have an episode, if you haven't watched it yet, on beliefs. I'll link it in the show notes so that you can go and watch that episode to get some clarity on how our beliefs can limit us from accessing our dreams and accessing the vibration that's necessary to attract our dreams. Yeah, that is a long summary of my manifestation story. And I would love Karina to share me yours.
You know what I love so much is that so often our upbringing and our experiences in life are two very different sides. It's so fascinating to me because for myself, I started hearing about manifestation. I think it was about like 2017, 2018, somewhere around there. I don't even know how I started listening to her podcast and following her online. At the time, she was called Jess Lively, but she's now changed her name to Bella Lively. And she was all about talking about manifestation and getting into alignment to then receive the abundance of the world. And she spoke a lot about this Abraham Hicks. And it was interesting because as I would listen to her podcast or as she would share things on Instagram, I kept hearing this Abraham Hicks. And it took me, honestly, hearing that name about 10 to 15 times before I'm like, okay, who is this guy, Abraham Hicks? And so I started to do a little research. I didn't quite understand what was going on, so it didn't immediately resonate with me. But once I started to understand, it was this woman named Esther. And at the time, her husband, Jerry, was there too. And she was channeling this energy called Abraham. And it was the beginning of 2019 that I noticed that Esther Hicks was going on tour. And I felt like I really wanted to go. At first, I wanted to do one of her cruises, but I'm not a big cruise person. And so I actually reached out to one of our friends, Samantha Pike. Some of you may or may not know. Shout out to her. And I said to her, have you ever heard of Abraham Hicks? And she said, actually, yes, I have. And I said, oh, that's amazing. She's going on tour and I really want to go and see her. And Sam said, I want to come too. And then her sister said, I want to come too. So the three of us made plans and in October of 2019, we went to Boston. We did a girls' trip, a weekend trip, and we got to see Esther in the flesh. We saw her.
I feel like you're missing a part of the story though, because there was a big manifestation that even occurred with you guys.
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. The whole trip itself was very divinely guided. We had somebody who was incredibly generous that really supported us along the way because they knew the power of Abraham Hicks. They had been a long time follower of Abraham, and they've been to many of her talks. Exactly. So when we put it out there that we were going to go, it was incredibly supportive, so the trip itself, it was a huge manifestation for me as well. And it was not more, I'm like, oh, okay. So I'm starting to understand what manifestation is. However, I was also still very confused as to what manifestation is. Anyways, so going and seeing her in the flesh was really cool. It was a really awesome experience. And it was such a pivotal moment for me just to be witness to somebody and their channel, their connection. And yeah, it was very profound. From that moment in time, I then started along this path of manifestation. And it's really embarrassing to admit, but I'm going to share it because I feel like many people, when they start on their journey of manifestation, they get very confused as to what manifestation is. It's almost as though you think that manifestation is outside of yourself and that you get to manifest free trips. You want to manifest shoes, you get them for really cheap. You want to do this, you get this, but you get it free or as a big deal so it's outside of yourself. So you have your life and then you get to manifest these free things. And that is not what manifestation is at all. Manifestation is your entire life. It is the echo of your vibration, of your frequency, is truly what manifestation is. And that's why it's, as Skylar mentioned before, which is so, I want to replay that. It's not about how you feel. Yes, there can be an aspect of it, but it's what you believe. It's an echo of what you feel inside is real or not. That's why your belief system is so important, because while yes, manifestation is abundance, it's abundance in general. It's about that the cheersing just got me distracted.
It is.
It is about, don't believe you're abundant. That is what you're going to receive, right? You're going to receive, oh, I don't feel abundant. Therefore, that's exactly the frequency that you're going to receive back. So for me, in my experience, it actually took me a couple of years to really dive even deeper into Joe Dispenza, understanding the neural pathways and the importance of that belief structure and how that does relate to manifesting.
So you bring up a really good point with the neural pathways, and this is like the next step for me in a way of where my journey of learning manifestation and supporting people with manifestation. So one thing to like really reiterate from what you said is like, yes, our frequency is very important, but at a conscious level, it's not just about being like, oh, I got to feel good. I got to feel good. I've got to feel good. Because honestly, and as a lot of the people I look up to in business will say over and over again, you can have one of your best days in sales and feel the shittiest possible. And the reason why you are having that best day is because your belief system is already set at a vibrational set point that you are capable of receiving those sales. So even though you might feel down on yourself, your belief system has gotten yourself to a point that it is natural, it is easy for you to receive what it is you're desiring to receive. So it's false to consider or to think like you have to be this positive vibe person all the time. And anytime you feel shitty or anytime your shadows are coming up, you're like, oh no, like I can't feel this way. I don't want to feel this way, or else I'm not going to attract in what I want to desire. And that is, there's a term for it. It's like toxic spirituality, and not what I want to stand for. And as a result, what I was seeing within my own client sessions, so whether it was so Reiki's all about supporting your vibrational frequency. So people will finish a Reiki session and be like, wow, I feel so good. I can take on the world. Like whatever their intention was, it's boom, like everything's solved. And then as soon as they leave that session, as if the work on the neural pathways, the work in the belief systems that have gotten them to that negative space of maybe feeling too stressed out or whatever their reason is for coming for the Reiki session to begin with, if we're not also addressing the mindset at the same time as the energy, then as soon as they get that first trigger after they're outside of the room, it's likely that they're going to go back into that lower frequency, that lower vibration. So I was seeing this patterning, and then in my own journey for myself, I was having such a hard time showing up online and communicating and sharing what it is that I do. And there was such like this like old witch wound around this fear of showing up that was all completely unconscious. But what was conscious was this intuition that I knew that helping my mindset would support me. So I then found hypnotherapy, and I found this amazing, incredible course. Shout out to Ryan Montez, who was my hypnotherapist, my teacher. The way that he created his course was that and this is how I create my Reiki courses as well. You're learning for yourself first. You're helping to heal self first, but you're getting the tools and understanding the knowledge of what is being worked on you in order to then be able to be certified to then share with others as well. So within that session or within that course, I definitely helped heal some things. And then I had another coach that really topped me up even more, release that wound altogether. But it happened due to the mindset work. And that's why I then wanted to learn hypnotherapy, because I wanted to help my clients as well, so that the lasting transformations that I was able and capable of supporting them with could actually last. And so those addressing the belief systems as just as important as ensuring and connecting in with your own alignment and ensuring that you are truly, and you can speak to this, Karina, around the design aspect of things, but that's also why design was so fascinating, because a part of manifestation as well is making sure that you are in your truth, in your alignment. And so much we are conditioned to be living in ways that aren't actually in alignment to our truth. I want to say it's not living by design, it's living by your design. It's not living by someone else's design. And I think that we can get confused because we can see some coaches' life and they're saying, oh, it's so great to live by design. And you're like, yeah, but I don't really resonate with their design. I don't want to be traveling to Bali right now. I'd prefer to be raising my kids and manifesting a cottage experience. So yeah, good. Like that, you're manifesting your designed life, the life that you want. Don't look at anybody else. And so obviously, as we've talked about many times, the beauty with design is it gives you the permission slip to start to acknowledge your truth, how to get into your most aligned vibrational frequencies so that you can start manifesting the things that are true for you too.
You said so many incredible things there. And I want to echo some things. First of all, the most recent thing that you said, it's all about understanding what you're living by your design. And something, even a great tool is like figuring out what your authentic codes are. So these are the core energies that you desire in your life. Pick 3, pick 4, go into meditation and really explore what are the things that are really important to me. Is it nature? Is it freedom? Is it travel? Really get down to what it is that you seek within your life. Because, as you mentioned, we experience, I think social media is a wonderful thing. It will expand you and it will trigger you all in one day. And you learn from both, right? So it can expand you by saying, oh, I would love my life to look like that one day. And it'll trigger you in lack mentality. And both need to be explored. When you're seeing these things, you're like, oh, that doesn't resonate. Great. What does resonate with? Do you want your life to look? What do you really value? Get clear on that. So then that way, when you are manifesting your life, you're actually receiving what it is that you truly desire, what it is that you truly want, that's truly authentic to you. Another thing that you said that I really want to amplify is the idea of actually doing work on yourself and the benefits that you receive. Oftentimes, I don't know about you, I've been working on myself for so many, like it's been a 15-year process, and I know the work is never done. But there's times in your life where you're like, oh, is there any point to this? Do I have to look at another shadow? Do I have to stare down another black hole? And you get lost in, I want to be careful because we are perfect at our core. It's just life kind of conditions us and changes us and makes us believe that we're not perfect, wonderful, love-filled soul beings. But when we take the brave step towards looking at our shadows, looking at our core, and really coming back to love, coming back to shining lights on the dark places, using modalities like Reiki, like hypnotherapy, like changing the way that you see yourself, the way life, those are such key components towards getting back to your authenticity. Even using design has been an incredible modality, a game-changing modality for myself, because there were aspects of myself that I felt shame about, when in actuality, they're gifts of mine. And so I amplify that, and it's completely changed my life in the most positive way ever. So the point of what I'm trying to say there is, yes, doing the work on yourself is the most beneficial work that you can ever do. Do it in a way that aligns with you, that feels good for you, and just trust in that. Trust in your intuition. That's going to really guide you in that right direction.
A conversation I was having with a client yesterday who does very similar work to me. Okay, so what one of my clients was saying last week, and she does very similar work to me, and so she had reached out because she was needing some support, and I was explaining to her that that was her first time receiving a session from me, so I was explaining to her what I was doing and blah blah blah, and so I asked at the end any questions. I can't believe like how similar our work is, and she goes, it just goes to show the testament of how necessary it is for us to receive support from others. We can't, and
Right.
we are not meant to do this alone. And yeah, for sure, you don't need to have a coach all the time in your life or a course to feed on or a self-help book to use, but we go through phases and in our lives, and some phases are necessary to have that extra support come in to bring us to that next level for us. And then some phases of our life are for integration. One word that I want to dissect a little bit more as a way to also help us in our manifestation journeys is finding expanders and things or people that help to expand us into seeing what is possible for us. And the first person I know of that used this term is Lacey Phillips, and she has created a whole process around manifestation based on, I've learned a lot from her in how the brain is needed to work in order to help create the manifestations that we want. And in our belief system, if we grew up in a space in an area that, for instance, no one was making over $100,000, it's going to be really hard for you to believe that you can make over $100,000, especially if everyone's making $100,000 by just being doctors or professors or whatever. So if you're choosing a entrepreneurial standpoint, if you don't have anyone in your space and in your area of life that is helping you to expand to see what is possible for you, it's going to be really hard for you to believe that you are capable of this. Surrounding yourself with people, being in a community or in a mastermind can be so helpful to bring you to that next level for yourself. I just want to bring that idea of expansion up for if you are having a difficult time in receiving what it is that you're desiring. Maybe you need to start surrounding yourself with people, or be like, social media is a perfect way of doing that. And podcasts are awesome too, because there are so many people that are ahead of us that we might not know personally, but they share their personal stories, and you get to feel like you've become friends with these people in order to expand you to see what you believe in.
This reminded me of, and I wanted to look it up, but I forgot to before our podcast. But there was a site, it was like 1928. The fastest mile was like, I don't know, just over 4 minutes. And somewhere, it was in 1928 where someone was able to do the sub 4 minute mile. If someone knows this more clearly, let me know, because I really was I wanted to say it accurately. And so up until that point, no one thought that you could run a mile faster than this speed. And it took one person to do it. And now people are beating those records all the time. It's this idea that your mind needs to be shown that anything is possible.
So weird. Sorry for stopping this flow of beautiful conversation. I was trying to do this behind the scenes, but I don't know why.
We need our own Jamie that Joe Rogan has, where he just, oh, can you check this for me?
Yeah.
And then he goes on and this is the stat. So yeah, that's the idea of your mind needs to see what can be possible. And so when you surround yourself with people or when you bear witness to it, it helps your mind say, oh, if that could happen for that person, then it can happen for me. And that again goes back to belief, which is a great episode to definitely take a look at.
One thing that I want us to talk about as well around this topic of manifestation is like, what is like one of the coolest things that you've manifested?
Oh my God. Am I going?
Go for
No,
it.
I know it. I know it. My life is riddled with beautiful manifestations there's two big ones. So growing up, I'm a third line in human design. And all that really means is that I live life through trial and error. So lots of experimentation, lots of trying to figure things out. And one of the areas that I did a lot of trial and erroring in is my love life. Lots of relationships, lots of failed relationships, lots of relationships that just didn't go well. And to a point that I thought that I was meant to be single with 2 dogs for the rest of my life. And I actually became very okay with that. And then just when I got okay with that, I met my partner and we are almost 3 years in. And it is one of the most expansive, challenging, but in a great way, relationships that I've ever been in my entire life. He is everything that I want. He makes me laugh every day. He's handy. He's spiritual. And that was a real testament to, and I did a lot of work on myself in order to manifest him. But the biggest manifestation, and I bring it up because during that time when I was like thinking of myself being alone, I wanted to live in a tiny home next to the water. I wanted property on the water, but I didn't understand the how. And the great news is I didn't get wrapped up in the how, which I think is really key, but I would visualize it. I would think about it. It actually came to me, not necessarily in a download, but all of a sudden I started to get this feeling of, oh, I would really love to live on the water. But in this economic climate, when property on the water is going, it's how can I ever afford it? And October of this past year, my partner and I manifested this property. It's 10 acres. It's wooded. It's beautiful. And it's on what's called the Salmon River. It is absolute perfection. The way I got there was through just a series of opportunities that I took throughout my life that got me to that place. What started from me being 25 years old, feeling like just being a bartender, feeling like I have no future, and started an RRSN life insurance. And from there, I was able to buy my first house with my mom. And then from there, I was able to sell my home and make money. And from there, and it just this things built, and you don't realize where you're going until you get there. And then you look back and say, now I get it, right? Hindsight's 2020. That all makes sense. So our property is definitely the biggest manifestation because I didn't know how I would ever be able to afford it, but it felt so real in my life. I felt it. It happened much earlier, but I would say I thought maybe by the time I was 50, I'd have it. Yeah. What about you?
You brought up so many points here and nuances of like how manifestation truly works. One is we don't have control of the timeline. So the more that you focus on the time frame, the more you're actually strangling the manifestation from occurring or for coming in. So that was like a beautiful example of that. Another is knowing where you were at when that property came into alignment for you guys. Speaking of like the importance of the belief systems and not necessarily totally always like the positive high vibration idea, is that I know for you that just even a few months before that transpired and that occurred, you were in one of the most wacky vibrational periods of your life. You were going lots of transformation and you've been doing your Reiki trainings, which I would definitely have attested to supporting you in that self-worth process, that self-worth piece. And even though your vibration was a little bit manic almost in ways, what was shifting and happening, it was your belief system about the truth of who you are and your intuition as well. you weren't doubting yourself, you weren't doubting your path, because you knew through the work that we were doing together, you had this deeper sense and knowing of trust. In the manifestation process, we have to have, there can't be self-doubt. If there is a lack of worth, those are things that we really need to consider and to look at and to help complete in order to allow those manifestations to come through. And so for me, around the similar time frame as you last year with getting and receiving that property, one of my greatest manifestations was, and I would attribute intuition to be a really strong proponent that allowed this to happen. Because once again, when we are going after our dreams, when we are going after our manifestations, the process, you have the dream, and then you start having inspired action come through. Your intuition starts moving in and conspiring. The universe starts conspiring with you to start allowing for these manifestations to come through. And what blocks us the most is not listening to the inspired action or not listening to the intuition because X, Y, and Z. Maybe it feels illogical. Maybe you're feeling suggested to do something that feels too scary, too big for you. And if that's the case, then, well, let's address some of those fears. Let's release some of those fears so that you can move forward with more regulation, with more balance. So for me, I really wanted to travel for a little while, but my business was predominantly set up in a way that it was mostly in person at that point. And it was actually Karina who, in her Reiki, one of her Reiki trainings, we had the opportunity that she was providing Reiki on me. And intuitively for her, she was picking up on messages about seeing me like in Costa Rica and around like bananas, or not even Costa Rica necessarily, but like she said that there was like, I remember you saying something about like monkeys and bananas. And I hadn't really said anything to you yet about my desire to go and do some long-term traveling that year. And that, her guidance, her wisdom coming through helped me to realize like, oh, this is something that I want for myself. It was almost like you were giving me the permission slip to dream, to have that belief. Oh, you can do this. Fast forward a couple months, that moment initiated the dream to come true and initiated me to start seeing the dream and what I was capable of doing within the dream, which then created the inspired action to allow me to lead up to the place that put me in a financial position that I could actually go away and do that. And also the first time that I fully launched my Reiki level 1 training to be all online. And that was a huge self-worth thing and a huge, honestly, with everything that aligned, if that didn't all align in that way, I'm not sure I would have even had the guts to put out the course. I was sitting on that online course for almost a year before I even felt comfortable enough to put it out. And it was like just the snowball effect that occurred. When I was planning the dream to go away for a month, I didn't have the money to do it. I had no idea how the money was going to come up. And then all of a sudden, at certain points and in certain ways, just like money kept on coming through. If the subconscious is in alignment, all good. So Karina and I ended up traveling to Costa Rica together, and that was part of that vacation for me. And when she got there, and then when I had got there and we were together, I had so much fear coming up around money. And I had already been gone for a couple weeks, and I just had these triggers coming through. And I kept on doing what I know how to do, which is like regulating my nervous system, bringing balance, reminding myself like money comes to me easily and effortlessly. That's my saying, I say. And then I shit you not, within that like week, remember, I just kept on getting clients booking in and clients booking in. I couldn't believe it. It was like so weird because they're all booking in for my highest ticket offers. I'm not even promoting these offers right now. How are people even finding these things? I couldn't believe, I can't believe, but it was just So the universe supporting me. So being
Mhm.
supported. And I had worked on my belief systems moving up to that point, and that I have a real attribution to, and the trust in my intuition, the trust in source guidance to get me to this space and to this place. So
Yeah.
really cool.
Yeah, I love it so much. And again, it's there's a big aspect of it too, and it's this living consciously. And we're not privy to the how, but having that unwavering faith and trust and checking yourself, checking your belief system. Do you feel worthy? Do you feel X, Y, and Z? Do you feel in, as Esther in Abraham Hicks says, vibrational alignment with whatever it is that you're receiving? And if you're not, that's okay. That's where you start, right? That's where the work begins. We all have to do it, but the more open you are and the more connect with your wisdom, connect with your intuition, follow that inspired action, it will guide you the long way. You just need to be open to it and don't limit yourself. Don't think that it has to look this way. You need to be open to what happens. Are you picking a card?
I am picking a card. So the card that I pulled, so we always pull a card at the end to what we've been talking about to help summarize it. And what I acknowledge about this card is that it's helping us to see potentially maybe a shadow or sort of an
Mhm.
unconscious block that might come through sometimes around that could be like preventing us from being in a more magnetic space for ourselves. So it was the Ascent, which is the 7 of Keys, but it was reversed. And let me read it to us. So this card reversed can sometimes indicate the loss of a position, a sudden departure from a job, or a fall from grace in your reputation or career expectation. It also speaks to efforts that don't pay off. You have worked hard to reach a higher position, yet it seems to have eluded you. The specific outcomes you seek may be harder to realize right now, and your efforts may not be acknowledged by others. No matter how hard your work, it seems like you're often starting over from the bottom. This may just be a passing phase, but if you find yourself making long-term efforts without any reward in sight, it could be time to think about a new approach or a different place to plant your flag. So, what I immediately feel and think about this is sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to fully see our dream or allow ourselves to even have that dream to begin with because we have this autopilot of what's the point? It hasn't worked out before, so why is it going to
Yep.
work out? If there are things that you've been wanting to attract in your life forever, but it hasn't happened yet, get curious if you actually want those things. Is it you that wants those things, or is it someone else that wants those things for you? So let's say it has to do with having a child. Let's say it has to do with marriage. Let's say it has to do with career. It's very possible that the reason why that thing isn't a vibrational match for you yet is because maybe it's actually not meant to be. Maybe you need to learn a little bit more about what it is that you actually want and stop considering what everybody else around you is projecting on you to want. So I
Yep.
have a little
That's so good.
and to get some more clarity on this for you of how that attaches or reaches to you. So close your eyes for a moment if you're listening in. There is a goal above you and to climb a steep hill to get there. With eyes closed and feeling filled with energy and enthusiasm for this goal, see how you can apply yourself to this endeavor. What steps can you take to reach the top? That is what we have for today. Some of these topics that we brought up this week, we are going to dive into in much more detail and much more of a way to really support us in moving through some of these aspects of manifestation and how to be able to apply it to what you're trying to manifest. So I hope that you liked what we had to share today. Anything else that you want to share before we sign off today, Karina?
No, I just want to make sure that everybody gives us a little subscribe on our YouTube channel. Give us the love, because honestly, the more love that you give us, the more love we receive, and then we can give back to you and reach out to us. Like, come talk to us. Let us know what you think. If there's topics that you would love for us to get into, any questions specifically about manifestation that you have, our inboxes are always open on our socials. So
Thank you. That was perfect. Love you so much.
thank you so
Karina.
much, everybody. Take
Thanks for
care.
coming live, and we'll see you next week.